Welcome everybody to our Community Mental Health Transformation Programme webinar. This one is around understanding co-production. My name is Eloise Thompson. I'm a Programme Manager for the Community Mental Health Transformation Programme. I'm going to be chairing the session, really just, I guess, gluing the session together and making sure we keep to time and to keep on track of all of our housekeeping, which I will just start with, if that's okay. So if everybody could please ensure that their cameras are turned off while we are presenting, just to make sure that we can keep a bit of a focus on the slide decks. You will all hopefully be muted automatically, but if anybody isn't, if you could just please turn your mute buttons on, just so we don't get any interference. The session will last about 50 minutes. That will include about 40 minutes or so for the presentation, and then some time at the end for question and answers if there's anything people wish to ask during the session. If it's okay just to put it in the chat, I'll keep a little bit of an eye on that as we go through, and if there's anything I can answer during the session I will do, but if there's sort of kind of general questions for our presenters, then I'll bring them in at the Q&A session as well, if that's okay, folks. We are going to be recording, so just wanting to make sure that nobody has any objections to that. If there are any issues, if you could just please speak to Janine Pounder. Janine, can you just stick your details in the chat, and then people can get in touch if there's anything they need to talk to you about the recording. And then we will be planning to send the slides to all delegates following the session. So we're talking about co-production. Really excited. This is something that's a huge part of our community mental health transformation programme, and something that's really important and that we try and bring into everything we do. So there'll be a little bit of understanding of co-production that will be presented by Amy and Laura. Do you guys just want to quickly turn on your cameras, guys, and just give a bit of a wave to people? Thanks, guys. This is a kind of co-production taste session to really understand and showcase the co-production workshops that have been developed by the Recovery College in partnership with our co-production network and people with lived experience, which is really designed to support individuals with lived experience and professionals around the principles of co-production. So I'm going to hand over, if it's okay, to Laura and Amy for them to be able to introduce themselves fully and take us through our session. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, we'll introduce ourselves. Janine, are you sharing the slides for us? Oh, that's fantastic. Thank you very much. So yeah, thank you for inviting us to be part of your series of webinars. It's a really exciting opportunity for us to showcase the Understanding Co-Production workshop that's launching later, and to get an idea of what people's thoughts and feelings are around co-production. Then my name is Amy Day, so I manage the Recovery College, which is part of Lincolnshire Partnership Foundation Trust, and I'm joined today by Laura, who I will let introduce herself.
Hi, my name is Laura Suffield, and my long title is the People Participation Manager for Community Mental Health Transformation. So I do a lot of engagement work and co-production. I chair the co-production mental health network, which is expanding into the wider mental health, dementia, learning disability and autism field over the next few months and going forward, hopefully. And that's my role. And Amy also very kindly with the co-production network allowed us to be involved in the co-production of the co-production course, and we also co-facilitate as well.
Thanks, Laura. I think, yeah, we should maybe keep a tally of how many times we say co-production during the course of the webinar. Yeah, so it's a topic that Laura and I are both very, very passionate about, and something that we really advocate and sort of role model within our ways of working. So yeah, really privileged to be able to join you all today. And by no means are we absolute experts in this area, but it's an opportunity for us to share our learning so far and give you a little bit of a taster of the session that has now launched on the Recovery College timetable. So we will be exploring various things as we go through. So we'll be looking at different forms of co-production, looking at some examples of co-production, looking at some of the key principles and thinking about why we might co-produce and what the benefits might be. Looking at some of the background around the conversations that are happening across Lincolnshire around that sort of strategic overview, delving into some of the principles around co-production and having a think together around, well, okay, I might know all this now, but how on earth do I get started? What is that starting point for me, and what role might I play within co-production across services? Next slide, please, Janine.
Sorry, just having a moment.
That's okay. Thank you. So our thoughts when we were looking at what bits of the training shall we pull out for the webinar was really centered thinking about, people's experiences of co-production and some of the ongoing conversations around participation, around involvement and engagement, and sort of a lot of us coming together and sort of saying, well, the idea of co-production it's not a new concept, and I'm sure many of you will be familiar with. There's quite a few different ladders that are around there showing the steps around how we get from, sort of the bottom rung into the top. And, it's not something that is brand new to health and care services. So the ladder on the left is by a lady called Sherry Arnstein. It's actually dating back to 1969, and when she was looking at sort of her insights and sharing them in a paper round. So it's the ladder of citizen participation, and it was a really highly influential journal article at the time. So sort of it represents how those levels of participation, so those lower levels such as informing or placating, then can and lead from non-participation with people all the way through to where we start to talk about that power balance, where we're starting to shift that power balance for people that are utilising and engage with services. And it was a deliberately sort of quite provocative take on that relationship between sort of the community and the citizens of the community and the government, and the metaphor of this ladder has been used and shaped and developed as we've gone further through. So I hope that some of you are familiar with the ladder on the opposite side of the screen, where we look at that moving from where we're trying to do to people, where there's that sort of quite outdated ideology around where we're trying to fix people who are those sort of passive recipients of their care, to then gradually starting to do for, where we're more engaging and involving people, and then to do with where we've got those key words that will come through as we go through the session today around being equal and reciprocal, where we then lead towards co-production as well. So what we wanted to share with you, next slide please, Janine, is a video that oh gosh, I watched many years ago, but feel that it's still quite relevant today for when people are trying to think about what is the difference between engaging with someone with full co-production, around involvement, around participation. And this video has proved quite helpful when trying to sort of explain that difference. It's been co-produced itself, and it looks at the ladder of co-production. It looks at sort of the series of steps towards co-production within that health and social care setting. Really gives some sort of understanding about those various stages, and helpfully links it to a football metaphor. So it might be it's more relatable than some of the other videos and clips that you might see that are out and around. So we'd just like to share this video with you, just to set the scene when we're talking about those steps to co-production. If we could play the video, please, Janine.
We
We are members of the National Co-Production Advisory Group, which is made up of people with care and support needs and carers. We are supported by TLAP and we promote the use of co-production in health and social care. We are committed to making sure that personalised services and support based in the community become a reality for everyone. There's a lot to consider when involving people, so this film is to help you identify the different approaches. People can be involved in many ways, ranging from coercion to co-production. We will explain 7 of them, and to make it more fun and easier to understand, we'll use football as examples. It can be football or any other sport really. So let's start with coercion. What's that?
Coercion. This is the bottom rung of the ladder, in which the person who uses services is not involved in a scheme's design or delivery and is instead encouraged to participate through forceful tactic. It's like when a player is told he has to play in a different position, otherwise he's not playing at all.
I'd like to know about educating.
Educating. The person who uses services is helped to understand the scheme's design and delivery, so they gain the relevant knowledge about it. That is all that is done at this stage. This is like when the players and the team are given information about certain styles of football that will help them improve their skills.
What about informing?
Informing. Too frequently, the emphasis when informing people who use services is a one-way flow of information. There is no channel for feedback or power for negotiation. It's like when managers tell players how to play without asking them about their experiences and what they have learnt in previous games.
What about consultation?
Consultation. People who use services may be asked to fill in surveys and attend meetings. However, this may be tokenistic if they don't have the power to influence or affect change. It's like when managers ask players for advice on what tactics to use, but may or may not use it.
How is engagement different?
Engagement. Compared to consultation, the person who uses services is given more opportunities to express their views and to share in the decision making, but they are not involved in delivering the service, the product or the policy. It's a little bit like when players and managers have pre-season meetings to discuss the season ahead and all the matches that they're going to play.
What does co-design mean?
Co-design. Based on the experiences and ideas, the person who uses the service is involved in the design of the new service, but they are not involved in delivering it. It's like when football players and their managers plan tactics for the match, but the player is a substitute and doesn't play.
And what about co-production?
Co-production. This is the top rung of the ladder. Co-production is a relationship where people who use services and carers work together with professionals on an equal basis to design and in some cases deliver the service. It could also be a product or policy. It is built on the principle that those who use a service are best placed to help design it. It's like when football players and their managers plan tactics together by using their knowledge and experience. As a result, they are more organised, play better, and are a good team.
Thank you, Sally and Kieran, for explaining. We now know that co-production is in fact the best way to work and is the goal to reach. I hope this film has helped you to understand the different ways people can be involved. Bye, and thanks for watching.
Thank you, Janine. Next slide, please. So the TLAP ladder of co-production It's used to describe co-production as strategic, sort of almost commissioning level. But what I find really helpful about the work that they've done is that it can be adapted to any other level as well. So actually, it becomes relevant within sort of service design. It becomes relevant within your day-to-day work that you're doing as well. So it isn't just around that strategic commissioning level. It's a great way of adapting. So on the next slide, what we've done to just try and reinforce the differences around sort of informing and consultation is to, oh no, one back please, is thank you, is to just share with you the guidance that's being created by the NHS England. So this guidance is part of a document, so it's working in partnership with people and communities. So it's that sort of statutory guidance that's there, and we do have links that we can send through to everybody as well at the end. So it's about supporting effective partnerships, being able to work with people and communities. But the diagram shows the differences between, again, that informing, consulting, engaging, co-design and co-production. So that move from sort of sharing information about proposed changes so that people understand what they mean, towards that equal partnership where people with lived and learned experience work together. Some of the key words being pulled out, it's that working together, it's from start to finish. Now, there are going to be times when actually different parts of engaging with people and involving people within the work that we're doing will be more relevant. So it will very much depend on the piece of work that you are working towards. But as a gold standard, we are working towards that co-productive approach. So we've got some examples of work that has been done within systems, and what we'd like for you to drop into the chat is whether you think that this is an example of informing, consultation, engagement, co-design or co-production. So if I can have the next slide, please. And Laura's going to explain around this one.
Thank you, Amy. So one of the groups that I support and facilitate is a steering group for the Mental Health Liaison Service. Our Mental Health Liaison Service teams are based in the acute hospitals, and they support people who are in the hospital, either on a ward or when they turn up at accident and emergency. They may be there for a physical healthcare condition or for whatever reason, but they may also have a mental health need. So the team is there to help support people so that they can access the support and care they need for whatever they're there for. So within that group, the group is made up of people who, one of whom regularly accesses the service, sits in one of our acute hospitals, and also people who are carers or family members or know somebody who has accessed the service. And one of the things that happens with that service is they have a little leaflet that they give out to people when they've seen them in A&E for them to take away with them. And they wanted to revamp this. So they shared their existing discharge leaflet with the group for them to comment and feedback. And there was really healthy discussion around this where they gave lots of ideas, thoughts, and it fundamentally meant that the leaflet was redesigned and they're based on all the contributions and then shared back with the group, and any changes agreed, any further tweaks added before the new leaflet was published and used. Other than the sort of title of the service and all the contact information on there, generally most of the leaflet was redesigned to ensure that it was appropriate for people taking it away when they're in a particularly vulnerable or unwell situation, so that it was still useful to them after the fact. So if you could just pop in the chat, and please don't be afraid, because it helps us to understand where people are. So would you see that as a concept, as informing people what you're doing? Would you see it as just consulting on what you're doing? Are we engaging with them, asking their thoughts? Are they co-designing, or are they co-producing? I will say we identify it as a couple of those. If people would just like to drop their thoughts in, please don't be afraid to do so. Well, you're all jolly good. And I can see my colleague who works in the engagement team has picked up both, and I can see other people picking up both. Yeah, it is actually an example of engagement because we're asking them for their input. And then this went on to be actually co-designing the leaflet. You can think there can be thoughts on whether it's consultation or engagement, but it's that nuance between the two. Engagement means they're having more involvement rather than just being asked. They're actually then contributing, which is why we put it more towards engagement. But thank you very much for that. Amy, did you want to add anything there?
No, I think it's a brilliant example, and it starts to get you thinking
Thank you,
about how
everybody.
actually, yeah, one thing can start something, and then it can actually lead on to other things dependent on sort of the views and feedback and themes that are coming through from the group. Thank you, Laura. So our next slide, and the next one for you to have a think about, so is around, some of you may be familiar with the work that's been done around the Building Together focus group. So this was a project that was put together around the creation of 2 new wards at the Peter Hodge. Why did I get this slide? I can't say Hodgkinson Centre. Thank PHC. In Lincoln, and this was around a group of people coming together. So it was designed in partnership with service users, patients, staff, carers, people who had previously used LPFT services to design and create 2 brand new wards. And then launch them. Now, this involved thinking about the inside and outside space, thinking about colour schemes. It involved thinking about what this would look like, how this would feel for people that were then, sort of utilising. So looking at room layouts, furniture options, all sorts of things, so for the full project. So what do people think in terms of that ladder of co-production? What level would this be at? What are people's thoughts? Please do drop into the chat and we'll see what you think.
I notice our colleague from engagement who is on this is actually the facilitator of this group. So I hope she doesn't mark us down for giving a very brief overview.
Feel free to jump in if you want to add some extra information. So what do people think for this one then?
I think for a little bit more context, people were involved right from the very beginning. So they were brought in right at the beginning to meet with and speak to the architects. Obviously, expectations were set because there are restrictions on how buildings can be produced, but they were there with an equal voice. And it didn't matter who you were, what lanyard you had on or not. They don't get brought forward in the meetings. You are there as an equal voice and you're involved right from the beginning. Hope that helps with a little bit more context. I can see it possibly has, yeah.
Yeah, we've got in the main, yeah, absolutely. An amazing project, yeah, absolutely. So we have got, yeah, elements of co-design, elements of co-production, yeah, engagement. Yeah, we've got an is it everything?
It is a mix, yeah.
Yeah, from the beginning, co-produce, yeah, equal.
And they are
Okay.
an award-winning group.
Oh, yeah, absolutely, they are. You're
An
absolutely right.
award-winning group.
Yeah, I think the key things, thank you for your contributions in the chat. Absolutely. I think the key things around this is that absolutely it's around that equal partnership that Laura has stressed, and bringing together the relevant, key people who have got both that lived and learned experience and those keywords around that sort of from the start to the finish. And I think also including those regular updates as well around progress and then evaluation as well come into this being a really fantastic example of a co-productive ways of working. Thank you. Next slide, please.
Just to add as well, Amy, that group is continuing to work on and co-producing the how the new building new sites and wards are going to look in Boston as well at Norton Lea.
Yeah, it's fantastic, and all that expertise that people have shared with one another, they're able to take that forward now in that new project. So we have another example for you. So what are people's thoughts around, I don't know if I dare raise it, COVID-19. So we've got some examples on the slides of things that you might have seen whilst you were out and about. Yeah, absolutely, Matt. I agree with that one. But as an example, so I don't think I need to tell you about what happened during COVID-19. I don't think I need to rehash that. But what were people's thoughts around the messages that people received, the interactions, etc., that we got during the pandemic? What would that be an example of? Thank you, Sarah.
I see Sarah's popped it there as informing, but I really rather like Matt's response, to be honest.
Yeah, I would agree. I would agree. Yeah, absolutely. This is an example of informing, isn't it? It's where we just got told, didn't we? So sharing information about changes that were happening. I would agree. Yeah, we got information, didn't we? But yeah, very dictatorial, absolutely. And yeah, Matt, you're right, showed that lack of listening to any other people's thoughts around that process and that learning. Now I know there's ongoing work being done, isn't there, around COVID-19, where they are actually now bringing together people to revisit that approach around any sort of pandemic situations. And sharing the learning around shaping sort of key strategies for the future. Yeah, it was absolutely very claustrophobic. Thank you all for having a go at thinking around the differences between informing and that ladder of involvement engagement all the way through to co-production. But it just helps to sort of set the scene and look at the differences around them. So I'm going to move on to the next slide, please, and Laura, I'll hand over to you.
Yeah, I was just going to say as well, looking at those, and Thomas had put educating, and actually there was an element of them trying to educate people, but it wasn't reciprocal, was it? It was very one way. But anyhow, so I'm going to sort of focus a little bit more on the co-production element of the ladder. It's important to stress that there is place and time for all the different elements to be used. There is a time when things have to be informed, there is a time for consultation, there is a time for educating, engaging, co-designing, involving, and co-producing. So we're not saying that co-production is the only way. Co-production is held as a gold standard, and it has become quite a buzzword where people are using it and saying they're doing it, even if they're just speaking to someone. So it's really important to note the differences, but to also recognise there is a time and a place for each, depending on what the constraints, expectations, national statutory guidance may be around something. So co-production, as we said, is an ongoing partnership between people who design, deliver and commission services. And it's very much an equal voice, where people with lived and learned experience work together with people in the services from start to finish. And what we need to remember is just because somebody might work in a service doesn't mean they don't also have potentially lived and learned experience of what they're working in and working on. So it's remembering that everybody has something in the background. Everybody brings something of themselves. And that's why it's really important to respect difference and to respect one another's ideas and thoughts. Next slide, please. So why co-produce? I think, well, just from noting the comments, a lot of you are very much understand co-production and may have done it or may be wanting to do it. But it's really important that we know that co-production is person-centred care. It's about the person in the middle, and services, support, anything fitting around that person. It is not trying to fit a person into a service. And that's why it's so important that we involve the people who actually use that service. They're the ones who can tell you whether it's working or not, and they will tell you how it feels like. And you know, and a lot of time people are doing what they do. Nobody comes into work each day thinking they're going to cause any distress, but they may not always have been on the receiving end of what they're delivering. And it's so important to have people give that feedback and co-produce from the beginning. It's about quality care and service improvements, and it's about ensuring that we align the services with what the community needs are. Surely that's also a best financial response as well. It's a population health approach. So it's ensuring that whatever our population needs are, and whether they are health needs, health inequalities, whatever they are, that we are addressing them, but doing that with people, not doing it to people. And it's that equality, but also the equity of access to care and support. Next question, please. Yes, Matt, you're right. It is essential that people fully understand each step, because otherwise they don't realise what it is they're doing, or they may think they're doing one thing, but it's very different in practice what is happening. So thank you for that comment. And why co-produce? Well, myself and Amy are really passionate advocates of co-production. We believe really strongly in it, and we really believe very much in the strength it brings and the difference it makes and the impact. And the reason to co-produce is to exchange skills, knowledge, experiences, and it's to help with health and well-being. It's to help support people to feel empowered and to feel an employment doesn't necessarily mean a paid job. It's employing the use of somebody's time and contributing it and feeding back. And yes, Gemma, our lived experience experts have so much to contribute, but again, remember that we all bring something. It's new peer relationships. It really has a massive impact for people on their confidence and self-esteem. It helps increase social connectedness, which helps with isolation very much. People can feel isolated within what they're doing. It improves relationships. And I can tell you just from looking at the photograph of the people on the Building Together focus group, but also other groups that I've supported with and other colleagues where we've co-produced, we have people who have been involved in co-production who then go on to use that skill to find employment within the different public sector services across the county and beyond, and including in our own trust. Next slide, please. So the Lincolnshire's co-production conversation. So one of the ideas is that we become national leaders and exemplars in co-producing health and care at system level. And we are already seen as a vanguard area when it comes to mental health, community mental health transformation. We're one of the early implementers of the 12 in the country, and we are seen as a vanguard site. And it also brings in elements of our shared agreement. So our shared agreement is something that's been done with people with lived experience, members of the communities, staff, people across the whole of the Lincolnshire system. Next, please. So we have principles of co-production, and these help people or anybody. These can help anybody when they're trying to figure out whether co-production is right for the piece of work that they're doing and whether it's right in the context they're at. So these aren't by any means a definitive list. There are other elements and thoughts that will come in that's specific to each project or program that you're thinking that you need to work on, and getting people in at the beginning. So it's about recognizing that people are assets, because we're all people fundamentally. in the end, everybody, and everybody has something to bring. That we build on people's capabilities and skills. Everybody has a different skill set. And everybody within whatever team or meeting or scenario you're in, or your friendship groups, everybody brings something different. And the beauty and the power is in when that all comes together. And it's about developing those two-way reciprocal relationships. One of the things that we do very strongly is ensure that we have terms of reference, code of conduct agreed as a group at the beginning of anything that we do. And our co-production network has that, which has also been reviewed. And it's about respect and recognising that we may not always have the same views and thoughts as one another, but that's okay. It's okay to recognise difference and to embrace it. It's about encouraging peer support. It's about encouraging to support one another. It does blur boundaries between delivering and receiving services, because it blurs it in a positive way, in that the people who are receiving the services are also supporting in what those services look like, and potentially can be delivering that support. And about facilitating rather than delivering. So I talk about facilitating networks. I know that Amy talks about facilitating courses, because it's not us just delivering it, it's about us facilitating it and involving people. Next slide, please. I think this one's still, yes. And again, some more of the principles are that equality, diversity, accessibility, and reciprocity. And they also pick up on your comment, Belinda. I can't give a specific definitive response there, but we welcome anybody who wishes to join into our co-production work. We endeavour to influence those around us and support people with pieces of co-production work. I know I've got a colleague on here I supported with some co-production at the end of last year, which they did a brilliant job with, and found that the outcomes were really powerful and ideas that were really strong and would make a big difference to the people with whom they were working. And thank you, Belinda. But we are open to anybody being involved, because everybody is human. Everybody is a person. Everybody has something to bring. Everybody has something to contribute. And as I say, I might chair the co-production network. My voice is no more important on that than anybody else's. I just make sure we get to the end of the meeting. We usually overrun. And anybody on here who would like to join us, you're very welcome to do so. Please just need to pop a message on here or send an email after the fact if you prefer to do so privately. I'm happy to pop my email in the I'll put my email in the chat for anybody who does want to follow up on anything or just have a chat. Thank you. I'm going to hand you back to Amy now.
Oh, thank you, Laura. Yeah, absolutely. I think those key points on people being able to work together, being able to share those decisions together, address that imbalance of power that is often quite prevalent around decision makings. Building trust, I think, is one of the key principles around co-production. And as Laura said, these are some of the principles that have come up through the work that Laura and I have both done, that we've seen as examples through, the different examples that we've raised today. Being able to build trust and communicate effectively with people, so that you're providing people with the same opportunities to be treated fairly and equally, regardless of their expertise or their background, is absolutely key. Could we have the next slide, please? Thank you. So some of the things that often come up are around, okay, so yes, we're going to co-produce, this is what we're going to do, but where on earth do I start? I don't know how to get started. I don't know what I should be doing around this. I don't know what my role is. Yeah, literally so much that you want to achieve, but finding that starting point. And I think, it's acknowledging that, every piece of co-production that you work, it takes a brave step, because you are essentially like leaping into the unknown, aren't you? It's a journey where you're exploring things together, you're discovering things together, it's being open to challenge, it's being open to listening to other people's ideas, it's being open to be able to think about maybe considering and changing your own ideas and concepts and thoughts that you might have had previously. It's around making sure that we're doing that in a strength-based way. So, you know, the process of co-production is very strength-based. So you're looking at, you know, appreciating people, being inclusive, as Laura says, around, you know, it's asset based. There's so many people around us that have got skills and experience and expertise that just providing people with the, you know, the right way to be able to work with us means that we are then learning from others. One of the reoccurring themes that we get coming over and over again is time. You know, I haven't got time to co-produce. It takes too long. And appreciating that a lot of us work in very, very high pressured, you know, sort of environments where you might have tight, you know, time frames, deadlines. And that's why with Laura saying, you know, be aware of actually what are the constraints that might have some governance around the piece of work that you're doing. Having that openness and transparency around the piece of work that you're doing and some of the things that might come into play actually helps really inform that co-production process. But having that sort of almost that mental preparation around sharing power, sharing responsibility, creating the right environment for people to actually flourish is some of the key things. You know, it's about being fair and honest and transparent so that we can achieve something better together than from, you know, sort of a limited a pool of people, so that you get those new initiatives, you get those new ideas coming through, thinking about things that you might not have might not have come up. Okay, so next slide, please. So for us, some of the things that have come up, and from our experience, it absolutely is about getting the right people involved. So we're working on the assumption that, yes, okay, we've got an agreement, you've got, you know, buy-in from the top down, co-production is the way to go forward. You know, you've got that that agreement in place already. So it's then starting to think about, well, who do we need to be involved with this piece of work? What is it? What is our purpose? What are we hoping to achieve by the end of this co-production piece of work? So you have to have the right people involved at the right time and in the right place. So that is very much around creating that right environment that we've spoken about. Being flexible in terms of how people can be involved with co-production, so exploring different ways. So within the college at the moment, we're co-producing a new course for ADHD. And you know, we've had to scope that out to start with to find out, you know, is it needed? What other pieces of work are there already around? Who do we need to be involved with this? Who are our experts going to be that need to inform this piece of work for us? And work together with us so that we can learn as we go through. So we've actually established 5 different co-production groups because some people wanted to be involved in face-to-face, you know, have those meetings in person, but the logistics of Lincolnshire is that it's, my goodness, it's a vast county. So, you know, we've set them up in different different localities across Lincolnshire, and also an online offer and a way that people can be involved in terms of review and feedback. So very much asking people, how would they like to be part of co-production, so that you can then create the right environment to be able to nurture people so that they can give what they would like to give and also be protected. It's very important that you create a shared purpose so that when you're looking at the values and behaviours, people are really clear in terms of expectation. So what is their role within co-production, and also what are the expectations in terms of how we're going to be with one another, how are we going to work together effectively. Very important to think about how do you nurture and support people and take it step by step. It's all right to take small steps in co-production. You might find you get to one step and then there's a different leap. You might have to go back and revisit things. It might be that you get to a certain point and think, do you know what, actually we're missing something here. There's more people that we need to involve. There's different expertise that we need to find. We need to make sure we've got those right people there. Being prepared to listen and create an environment to be able to do that. When you're looking at creating a piece of work co-productively, you've got lived experience, you've got learned experience, you've got to make sure that you're then backing that up with you know, with that evidence, so that any decisions that you make in terms of how this is going to look and how this is going to go about is backed up with evidence. So I don't know, some of the concerns that might come around about co-production is that decisions are based purely on, you know, personal experience. You find that balance actually within the evidence and the decisions that you're making, so that you are thoroughly researching that. So you don't, it doesn't need to be, you know, sort of a large scale statistical research, but actually giving some evidence around the decisions that you're making. One of the things that we've learned is to think about, you know, beware of that zone of comfort and slipping back into, you know, sort of those old familiar ways, rather than seeing things through, and be mindful of you know, potential triggers that might come up when you're getting started. So challenging conversations might come up. People might raise tricky things that you think, oh my goodness, how on earth do I manage that? This is why it's so important that as a group you've got that shared purpose and you've got those shared values and behaviours, so that actually you can then come back together and regroup back around your shared purpose. I think one of the key things is really cherishing what you actually create when you're co-producing. It comes from the heart. A lot of people that are involved working co-productively are really passionate about what they do. This is about that population health approach. It's a community approach, isn't it? And actually being able to recognise and embrace the value of co-production, how strong it can be, the wisdom and the potential learning that you get, really should be celebrated. And then you will find that it is then reciprocated as well. If we could have the next slide, please. And Laura, I'm going to hand over to you.
I was just very excited at reading a comment in the chat. He's starting to respond. I shall do that after. So this is, we call this it's very affectionately known as the Onion, and I'm sure you can see why, because it has. And members of our co-production mental health network have the opportunity to sit across all these different elements of services and programs where they can influence change and services and service development. So we have members who, under the Community Mental Health Transformation Programme, we have what we call 3 dedicated focus services that we stood up. And these are personality and complex trauma, community rehabilitation team, and adult eating disorder service. So we have people who sit on there. So there are members of our network who also sit on those steering groups. And again, our colleague Sarah, who's on this call, facilitates those steering groups and also liaises with us and gives us feedback on the things that they're discussing, and representatives from those groups sit in our network as well, so they can take information up and down. We had a trauma-informed care community of practice, and that's currently on hold as they're reviewing how they develop that moving forward, because it has worked really well, and they're looking at how that now evolves and develops. When we put on large-scale events for the programme or for the network, then our task and finish groups and planning groups for those events involve people with lived experience. So they're involved in from the beginning and involved in the minutiae of it up to the strategic levels of it as well. We have members of the group who sit on the programme oversight group, which provides direction, guidance and leadership. So it makes sure that Transformation Project is doing as it should be, and again, equal voice. And they can sit on the partnership groups within the area of the county they live. As you can appreciate, Lincolnshire is extremely large and extremely rural, being the second largest county in the country. I was just also, if it's okay, Amy, wanted to sort of relate this and just about the comments from Gemma and Belinda about everybody listening to one another. It picks up on what you were saying, Amy. Trust and relationships and respect are the fundamentals and are so important around co-production. It is not a quick fix. It is not something that you do to tick a box. We do not do that. And if people from different services come to me and say, can we bring this to the co-production network, we gatekeep strongly. We're not there to say, yes, we like what you've designed. we can do that, as long as you respect the fact that that is not co-production. So it's really important that as a network as well, we are really clear on what it is we are doing and what we're being asked to do. And one of the things as well around that respect is it's developing those relationships. The network has now been running actually this month 4 years, so it's not a quick fix. And we do various pieces of work, so we are an umbrella network. You don't need to be running 4 years with any project that you're doing, so please don't think that it's because we are an umbrella network. We do lots of different pieces of work. A co-production piece of work could be for a few months, but it isn't a quick tick fix. It's not how it works. There are times when that's important and when that's relevant, but then that's not co-production, and that's fine too. Yes, I would agree that without trust, we have nothing, and we trust and respect one another and have relations. You know, we know one another, we work together, but we also have to remember that when we ask somebody, and I believe strongly in this, when somebody gives their time to come along and share their story, that is a privilege. I feel privileged that they have felt that they can come into that space and share what can be very vulnerable and very difficult. It is a privilege that anybody wants to give their time to be part of co-production, because what they're doing is they're giving their time to make sure that things are better for people, not just now, but people coming up and coming after them. And we also make sure that we respect that, and we also ensure that, you know, that there are tough conversations sometimes, but you're not there to bring a personal agenda. Nobody is. We're there for a purpose, and that picks up on what Amy was saying about the shared purpose. But yes, that's our union. We're very proud of that, because we sit across so many places and they are equals on whatever they're going to. And actually 2 members of our network are now members of the Mental Health, Dementia and Disability and Autism Alliance Executive, which is the seniors leads from across the county, from county council, chief executive to the chief exec of our trust and others, and we have 2 members who sit on there. But you're right, Gemma, people do exhaust themselves, and one of the things that we say with the network, and I know that Amy does that with any courses they do, is we also say to people, you only give as much as you can give, and if you need to step away for a few months, you step away. If you want us to check in on you, we will. But it's recognising that and respecting that people can only give what they can give on that any one particular time, and it's okay to step in and out.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, thank you, Laura. So we hope that we've touched on some of the key things that we do cover in the full course that we deliver. Next slide, please, Janine, and this is the last slide as well. So if anybody would like to find out more, we are running the Understanding Co-Production workshop. So that is on Tuesday, the 28th of January. It's at Bridge Central in Lincoln. You can find out more details from the Recovery College website. It'll help you. Also, if you need to register, or if you're already registered with us, you can book a place by email. As I said, it's a very whistle-stop sort of tour of some of the key things that Laura and I wanted to bring to the webinar. But if you would like to, you know, continue learning with us and find out more, please do get in touch or book onto the session. Thank you all very much for your time. We appreciate that. That's the end of our slides.
Thank you, Amy and Laura. Thank you so much for that really, really wonderful and informative session. I have been one of the lucky ones to have already attended the Understanding Co-Production workshop. I can highly recommend it to people, and I'm still learning. I've learned even in the session today even more, so it's been so wonderful. Thank you. And I really loved the video and the football analogies, which I think others did, looking at some of the feedback that's there in the chat. So thank you both so much. Has anybody got any questions that they would like, or any reflections that they would like to raise to Amy and Laura? There's quite a few comments. I'm just trying to keep my eye on them. I know there's lots of feedback around all of the great work that you're doing and about people wishing to make links with the co-production network, Laura. If I know
Yeah,
you've put your details in the
I've
chat.
popped it in. I can see one person, I think Gemma's already emailed me. Matt, I can see wants to as well, and Rebecca.
Yeah, Rebecca.
But I
yes,
will
yeah.
respond in the chat, but it'll be after we finish. So I can
Yeah,
focus,
no
if
problem.
that's
Yeah.
okay. I have
Thanks,
started
Laura.
typing it. But...
Any other questions from anybody, folks? I'm just trying to make sure I can keep an eye. I guess while anybody's thinking of questions, I suppose probably just a bit of a reflection from me, if that's okay. I mean, I think I really think, as people have raised and as you guys talked about, listening is one of the things that I just think is such an important part of what we do when we co-produce or when we're working with anybody, really. I think really listening to people. And I am, again, very privileged to sit on the co-production network. I'm so lucky. So, you know, the stuff that I am lucky to listen to and hear, and the way in which people talk and the language that people use, and you know, there's just so much richness that you can get, that you can bring into what you're doing just from listening to people, actually, and really changing the way that you think and thinking about doing things differently. So I think that is hugely important. I think the other thing that I found really useful from what you said today and from attending the session was I think the flexibility in the approaches that we can take to co-producing, and actually I think sometimes you can overthink it and try and get it too perfect, and it can stop you from doing anything, whereas actually it's an evolving process sometimes. And you know, and some of the, you know, the ways in which we've approached co-production is actually just to start by having a conversation with people with lived experience, and just to talk about what we're thinking of doing, what we're planning to do, and then actually co-produce how we co-produce together. So it really can be such an evolving thing in my experience, which I think is really helpful.
What I quite like about it is that it takes away the pressure on you you don't have to have all the answers. So, you know, when you're co-producing, you may have, you know, you've got a loose framework, or, you know, but actually you are starting with a blank piece of paper. So it does sometimes take, you know, if you're trying to think of shifting that mindset around, you know, working with lots of different people, is it easier to just go off and do it on my own and make the decisions? But actually you're starting with a blank piece of paper. You don't have to have all the answers. You're drawing on the expertise around you. And if you can get your head around that sort of that shift in power balance around, you know, letting go of some of the things that you might usually in your professional role be going, I'm going to make a decision on that, I'm going to make a decision. Being open and transparent around sharing that power, there's so much reciprocity, and that sort of that mutuality of learning together is so valuable in shaping services. We get the offer right then, don't we? Even if it takes longer to get to that point, we get the offer right, which means that we've got more effective services.
Yeah, definitely. I can't see any questions.
Well, sorry.
Oh, sorry, Laura. No, sorry, Laura.
No, I was just going to say I would echo what you're both saying. Is that power and that inspiration is in just letting go and being open. It can be. It's how I'm. You know, it's okay. I'm used to working like that. It's what I do on a daily basis. So it's, you know, it can be like, oh well, it's okay for you. Yeah, I'm used to working like that, but I do know and recognize it can be really difficult, and it can be really, I'll be honest, it can be really scary. You know, the big, you know, like I said, we've been going 4 years with our particular network, and we, you know, we had some scary times at the beginning, and we had some very strong disagreements in the group, but that trust, that respect, and the relationships ensured that we addressed those, and we did it in a respectful way, and we all still work together, and we all still really, it's a really good group of people who want to make a difference, who really get on together and support one another. There's that support element as well, but the power is in when you let go a little bit and you just let a conversation flow. I mean, I come off the network meetings and just it's just powerful. It's powerful and it's wonderful, and you just get to open up your thoughts and get so many ideas, and things will come in from left field that you may not have thought about, but they make so much sense, and you can bring them into what you're doing. And the power is in the people that you have there, and just being open. and it's okay to let go a little bit.
Thanks,
Sorry.
Laura. No, the passion is there and wonderful. Rachel.
I suppose I just wanted to reiterate, well, just support what Laura's saying there, because I've done some co-production for the first time. I found it scary, challenging, didn't get it very right to start off with. I had Laura, thank goodness, to lead me through it. But oh my God, the output, what you get back, it was worth all of my own stresses and anxieties and panics about doing something completely different for me. It was doing something completely different. And, you know, and I've learned so much, and I sort of will learn going forward on how to do it differently as well, i.e. start much sooner. It takes a lot longer than what you think. But I think it is all worthwhile for me. I think someone's already said it about someone sharing their story with you and being honest with you is really humbling, and how they bring such a different view to someone like myself, where you know, when you work in transformation or commissioning or whatever else, you sort of think, oh, well, we need to do this. And then you talk to people in the service and they go, actually, no, you don't, because that's not what we want. You go, oh, okay, then. I just, you know, I would just recommend to people who haven't tried it to try it, to use the resources that are there through your teams to help with that. But the benefits far outweigh, you know, the sort of the challenges you can sometimes get with it. But yeah, give it a go, and I'll keep doing it.
And Rachel, in answer to your question, there will be more dates that are coming out. We've just got the initial sort of launch date, and then we'll be looking at the timetable across the rest of the year. So there will be more dates, and we'll be trying to rotate around Lincolnshire as well. Yeah. So it's not always in one place.
Yeah, I was just thinking of New Starter we've got who won't be in post at that time. Thank you.
Well, happy to have conversations if that would be helpful.
Thank you.
Brilliant. Thanks, folks. I can't see any more questions. Just lots of really great feedback about the session in the chat, guys. And it's lovely to hear the connections that are being made both in Lincolnshire and outside of Lincolnshire. So that's really wonderful. So thank you so much to our presenters, Laura and Amy. Really, really appreciate you joining us for the webinar and for providing such a wonderful session. And thank you for everybody that's joined us today. It's always great to have so many people interested in the work that we're doing within the programme, and particularly within co-production. Just to make sure everybody's aware, because I know there's been a lot of queries in the chat around sharing of slides, so they will all be shared, and also there will be a recording available as well. So if anybody has had to leave early, all of that will be sent out following, so people will be able to have a little look again if they weren't able to stay for the full session. I think that's all for us today. I guess just one last thing for me to mention is we've got our next webinar on Tuesday, the 11th of February at 12:30, and that will be talking about the work that we're doing around the traveller community. So if people haven't had chance to register for that event, if they could have a look, and please do so, that would be wonderful. Thanks, everybody. I hope you all have a lovely rest of Tuesday, and we'll look forward to seeing you at the next webinar. Take care.